Hey everyone, welcome to Talks of Thailand. My name is Jon. Today's story is about a man who considers himself to be a bit of a ladies' man, and he says Thailand was the thing that opened up this possibility for him once and for all. Unfortunately, it caused him a lot of problems. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, give the video a like, and let's get in to today's story. Growing up, and through my 20s, 30s and 40s, I always considered myself to be a bit of a ladies' man. The problem was, I didn't really spend much time with the ladies, and I put that down to the fact that the country that I came from was modernising in ways that I really wasn't prepared for it to modernise. I was just your average kind of guy, medium build, not overweight, full head of hair, not bad looking, though not great, working a normal job, living in a normal part of town, and had a normal house. That was just who I was, and why I never had the life that I expected to have, I would never really know. I do again need to put it down to the fact that I believe that my country was modernising in ways that just simply didn't make sense for people like me. I was always very traditional, very, very traditional, if you will, to the point that nothing else made sense to me. I really envied people from my grandparents' generation, where you could be in your early 20s and you could meet a girl who had never met anybody before. And even though you hadn't met anybody before, you could have a normal life together, spend 50 years together and be happy. That's what I always wanted, but it didn't work like that, did it? The few relationships that I had, which didn't last very long at all, it was always a case of, you met someone and she's been around the block more times than the postman kind of thing, and it's like this isn't really how it's meant to be. The man's meant to be the experienced one, and the girl's meant to be the exact opposite of that. Where I was from, it just didn't seem to work like that. Although I felt I was a ladies' man, and I believed I should have had many ladies, given that that was what the situation was at the time, and I should just go along with it, yet it never worked for me. When I reached the age of 50, or just before or just after, I think that's when I came to the conclusion that something had gone wrong where I was from, and I just had to face facts that I was never going to have that sort of relationship that I thought I should have, and the thought that I thought it was because I deserved it. But I believe everyone deserves a loving relationship. I'm not saying that I believe that I should have had anything that somebody else shouldn't have. The problem was, the expectations of the female class back at home were expectations that I believed more lined up to the expectations of the men of old, and it really stung when I had to come to that realization, because I just thought I would remain single for the rest of my life after that. This was when I was around the age of 50. This was about 15 years ago now. And I got to the understanding, based on the fact that a very close friend of mine had just been divorced. He was lucky with the ladies, though never considered himself a ladies' man, even though I did consider myself a ladies' man. But he was luckier. How does that work? It's just the fate of the world, and it's just the backward nature of the world working against us, I believe. Even still, based on the fact that he got divorced and took a year out to himself, when he came back, this was about 3 years before I went, all he went on about was Thailand and the girls there, and how everything seemed to be more traditional, how everything seemed to be more set up in the guy's favour, how everything seemed to be the way I had always thought the male-female dynamic should always be, traditional like it used to be throughout the course of time. I was the sort of person who would always look at the animal kingdom and understand that if you see a particular species of animal, the male and female tend to have specific defined roles in that relationship. Sometimes the male will do this or the female will do that. Why was it that our species had tried to move away from what nature intended? That's always how I thought it was. The way he described Thailand, on and on and on about how good it was. When we went to the pub, the first thing he would talk about was Thailand. The last thing he'd talk about was Thailand and how he's going back again, although we never went back for about 3 years. While it was tempting to think about, I was always one of those people who would think, never meet your heroes. Things surely are going to be too good to be true. The way he's talking about it, this can't be real. When he eventually said that he was going to go back, he can't take it anymore, he'd actually made some money and sold his business and was retiring and looking at the possibility of going to live over in Thailand. He asked me if I want to come for a few weeks and go and see what it's like for myself, and I jumped at the opportunity. I don't know why I didn't go before this, because I could have done. I'd been on holiday ever since he talked about Thailand, but never to Asia. I just usually stuck to closer at home, mainly going to the south of France. That was always my favourite place to go, but that's beside the point. When he said he was going back, I just thought, yes, let's go and see it. go and have a laugh at his expense at how insane he is for believing what he's saying was real, because I didn't expect for 1 second that the person that I thought was like that would be the person that I could be in Thailand. Although I just made that huge error of judgment that so many people tend to make, on the understanding that what I thought was happening on the surface, yet was it really happening in reality? But the dynamics that went behind it, that I thought were happening, was different to what I thought was going on, and this is me skipping ahead a bit. I suppose that was where many guys get things wrong. I can remember the first few weeks leading up to when we were going to Thailand. I was just on edge all the time, quite excited to go, because the fact he was going to go back, that made me think that what he was saying wasn't a lie, it wasn't exaggerated, and it was really an exciting time. Going into work and just watching the clock tick away second by second for the last week of that time, not being able to sleep for any more than a few hours a night, just wondering what things were going to be like when we got there. As I said, this was about 15 years ago now, so it could have been probably longer than that, because it's about 15 years ago when I went to Thailand, so perhaps Thailand was introduced to me even longer ago than that. It probably was. We got to the day before we were actually flying. We were flying from down in London, even though we lived way up north, pretty close to the Scottish border. Apparently going direct was the best option, according to him, even though he never flew direct, though this was based on guys he'd spoken to who said having to change planes in places like Dubai was kind of not as good as flying direct. The airline that we'd chosen was called Eva Air. Apparently this was a Taiwanese airline, I believe, and they fly to Bangkok and they stop and then they carry on to Taiwan. I believe that's the case. It could be another country, I can't remember. But that's not important anymore. We made our way down to London the day before and we paid for a hotel quite close to the airport. It wasn't a great hotel, though I think the way my friend was just indicating that the price we'd paid for this hotel could be the same as what you'd be able to pay in Thailand for the hotel, the meal, and, well, the company that you might want to have as well. When he said the company you might want to have, I wasn't expecting it to just be 100% financial kind of thing. Yes, okay, you've got to help when help is due, I got that. I don't know. I believed it was the way I thought it was. I thought it was not the way it actually was. I suppose that's the case. I never found out the way it was until it was well too late for me. Woke up the following morning and looked at the clock, and this is 5 hours before we even needed to check in, and it was just a waiting game, but so excited. We decided we'd go and have a few early morning beers, just getting the mood for a long plane journey. I'd never flown so far before. I mean, the longest I'd ever been to was to Turkey, which was, 4 hours. We probably had a few too many beers and we go to the check-in, and just the way that you're checking in, and the way my friend described it, although I couldn't experience that because I'd never been before, he was like saying that he felt so proud of himself that he was going, and the people who were checking him in weren't going. It was like he was going to the promised land. He was going to this secret location that nobody knew about, and I was going with him, and I was going under his wing kind of thing, as if it was some kind of rite of passage that only works for certain sorts of people. I thought he was taking leave of his senses, really, though I could tell he was excited, and I was excited too, I will admit. We check in, go and have a few more beers, pretty drunk before we get on the plane, and we had seats close to the back, which was, according to my friend, a very bad thing to do, because once you get off the plane, you need to leg it as fast as you can to get to immigration, otherwise you're going to be queued for hours. He kept going on about that. The flight was pretty uneventful, really, nothing to write home about. This was the time when the flight attendants would come around with the arrival cards and the departure cards that you'd stick in your passport afterwards, after you had to fill them in, and I was quite apprehensive filling that in, because I'd never filled in an arrival card before. Those white sheets of paper with blue boxes to fill in, and that's your name, date of birth, passport number, visa number. I didn't have a visa, of course, at the time. Where are you staying? And I just put a hotel. It's like, do they even keep these and read them? Because you could have put anything on them. I found they didn't check, although I don't know. When I finally made it to immigration, and we did leg it off the plane to get to them, although I found it was only a 5-minute thing, we got through quickly, and he said, well, sometimes you're lucky. Running as fast as I could at my age, 50-odd years old, I think I was 50 or 51 or something, running as fast as I could when I'm not really much into exercise, I was completely worn out and got a pounding headache after that, which probably wasn't worth it. But we were in the country, waited for the bags, they came quickly, and he said we need to go and get a taxi from the proper place, because we don't want to book one in the airport because it's overpriced. It's like he's just showing me the ropes, and it's like he's having to tell me exactly how things work, because he's been there and done that, and he doesn't want me to fall for any of the traps or do anything wrong. It was funny though, but great at the same time. We walked downstairs to the taxi, 50 baht extra, jumped in, and that was when Thailand is alive and kicking in your head. I would believe this was my first time there, and I was completely blown away. Not necessarily with the country or the surroundings, though the fact that I was in this hallowed land, this special place that nowhere else was like, because that's how people described it. That's how people thought it was. It was sold as this magic kingdom, this place that doesn't exist other than in your imagination once you've actually been, kind of thing. But it was a really weird situation. This is based on the understanding of what people have talked about and what my friend has talked about and other things that I've heard and listened to throughout the time. I was blown away with the feelings of excitement. That was the truth of it. He kept talking about how my mind will change and I will never be the same person again, and I believed him, because I had these feelings, which were feelings that I'd never felt before, and I'd only just arrived in the country. We were staying in this hotel, and I want to give a shout out to the other guys who stayed in this hotel, because it was a very popular hotel, and I believe it still is. Although I stayed in this place many years after this as well, it wasn't really as overrun by a certain sort of tourist like it used to be. We stayed in the Ambassador Hotel. I've heard so many guys talking about that time and time again. I believe it was there in the 70s or 80s, wasn't it? They didn't have many other hotel options around Lower Sukhumvit area, especially on that side back then. I mean, they were coming up 15 years ago, though apparently this was the place to stay, and that's why you hear guys talking about it so much. It was like another rite of passage, going to stay at the Ambassador on Sukhumvit Soy 11. We arrived there early, and that was my first time seeing and talking to a Thai girl. Just a receptionist lady who was checking us in, and she was really beautiful. I said to my friend, well, what about her? She looks great. He said, well, no, that's a bit different. She works here. She's probably not, the sort of girl. I mean, what do you mean, that sort of girl? The way he described it was the sort of girl interested in foreigners, instead of saying a bar girl, basically. But she was beautiful, and that was the thing. After we checked in, I walked up to my room, he had his. We were in the tower section, which was overlooking the pool that they had, and I think because it was afternoon, my friend said, I'm here for however long he was there for. He was there for a long time thinking about going to live there, but I was only there for 2 weeks. He said, I'll meet you downstairs in the evening, and I said, fine. Got up to the room, but I was restless. I wanted to go out and see it for myself. I wanted to see what it was all about. And I just found myself having a quick bath, because they had a bathtub there, and I always preferred a bath to a shower, and that was great. But I just thought that was the Thailand thing, not knowing that it's a very rare thing to have a bathtub in Thailand. But anyway, again, that's not so important. It's just one of those things that you find by living there in the future, and how different things are. That you're introduced to Thailand via a nice hotel is not necessarily the Thailand you're going to actually experience and live in unless you're paying a lot of money for it. So perhaps it was just a false sense of security that I got by that's another Thailand little incident that didn't really matter in the scheme of things. For anybody listening to this and wanting to live in Thailand or anything like that, and you go and stay in a nice hotel, it's got a bathtub, it's got all of things like this, Western stuff, then you go and rent a cheap condo, even if it's not cheap anymore, you're not going to get all the stuff that you're going to get in a normal place. You're not going to get an oven or anything. Anyway, that's just something to talk about. But I headed out of the hotel myself, took a right which was going further up Sukhumvit Soy 11, not knowing which way to go. They had a little bar there, and because that's what my friend had talked about at length, I walked in. It was one of the Hillary ones, I believe. I think it's still there. Anyway, I walked in there. It was reasonably early, so there weren't that many girls in there, and I think the girls that worked there perhaps hadn't started yet because it was so early. I walked in, ordered a drink. I found it quite expensive, really, given what I'd been told, though it wasn't that expensive like it would have been at home, but it wasn't so cheap that it made everything else not make sense anymore as of yet. That was my first little experience in a bar. I did chat to a girl briefly, though nothing electrifying or anything, nothing exciting to the extent that I'd been told. I kept telling myself it's early days, don't worry about it. I left that bar after just one drink and headed back in the direction of the big Sukhumvit Road, where the SkyTrain was. I took a look left and right, deciding which way to go, and I had no idea. I didn't know what the soys were, didn't do anything. I just happened to turn right at the end of Soy 11, and I walked a bit further, and they had a Subway there, and I thought I'll have a sandwich. So I grabbed a sandwich, and I noticed down that soy, which was Soy 7/1, there were a few bars that looked a bit more like the bars that I'd heard about. I decided to walk up there, but not too far, early afternoon, and I just walked into a bar. I would say that was when my life changed. There were 3 girls in there, no customers as of yet. They had a pool table, a little bit of music playing. It was open air, no air conditioning, and it was as hot as hell, as Thailand is. Just the same hello, welcome, handsome man, all the stuff that you've heard about people talking in Thailand. And I knew, I'd always thought I was an okay, handsome man. I knew sort of in the back of my mind from what my friend had said how great it was. But he never explained the other side of it, such as, well, that's what they say to everyone. While you sort of suppose they do and you know that, I reasoned that what they were saying was true, because I had always thought myself as a handsome man. I'd always been reasonably looking, never ugly, never taking not care of myself. Hello, welcome, handsome man. This girl reaches out her hand and shakes mine, and she said something like, "What drink do you want?" Very broken English. I really found that attractive, though, the broken English. It was like it removed all the complexity out of the situation. You didn't have to have an in-depth conversation. You didn't have to speak to people at length about things going on. It was just basic humanness. That was what I was attracted to. But she kind of latched onto me. The other two girls were sitting in the back. One of them was actually putting on makeup. I can even remember. I can picture this as if it was yesterday. I can even see my actions and my movements and my mannerisms, and I can see myself shaking. I was that guy, and I was loving it. The thing is, I can, and I have to say it again, see myself there. And I suppose reliving it is exciting, even though I know what's to come, even though I know what happens later. Reliving this moment is so fun and exciting that it's like I was there yesterday. If I close my eyes, it's like I'm there. That's how amazing it was. Because here I am, the ladies' man I'd always known I was, always believed I was. I was the ladies' man, and I was and will be always a ladies' man who the ladies didn't seem to appreciate at home. She asked me if I wanted a drink, and I said yes. I ordered a Leo, like I had in the last place, and she didn't go and get it. All of a sudden, this older lady walks out from the back and comes behind the bar, and she goes and speaks to her and brings the bill over in that little plastic container, puts that down, gives me the Leo. Nice to meet you. Where you come from? How long you Thailand? All the same questions that you get, and I'm on fire. I really am. I'm loving it, loving the attention, loving everything about it. She said, "You buy drink me?" I said, "Yes, sure." Well, she goes over, gets a drink, asked her what it was, and apparently it was whiskey coke, the Thai stuff. She said, "You want to try?" I said, "Yeah." So I have a sip of that. Wasn't too bad in all honesty. She's just drinking and said, "How long you Thailand?" And 2 weeks. Name, my first name. You like Thailand? Yes, love it so far. You like Thai food? Not tried it yet. I asked her, "What's your name?" She tells me. How old are you? 23. Where are you from? Thailand. Well, yes, I know. Where in Thailand? I was interested to find out that because my friend said that his best experiences were with girls that came from Isan, which was the northeast. She even said she was from Isan and left it at that. She didn't tell me which town. Again, I can remember the conversation as if it was yesterday because this was my first time there, and it's just the best moment of my life. It really was the best moment of my life. She was just everything that I'd always thought my life would be about, and there she was. It wasn't difficult, it wasn't hard, it was just basic stuff that you talked about. It didn't appear that you had to worry about her not liking you or anything. It was like she just liked me. Or was that her job? Yes, it was her job. I'm just really struggling to actually get this across and to articulate it in the best way so that you understand that to me, this was fantastic, and I was loving every single second of it. Then she asked me, "You play pool?" Yes, I'd love to play pool. I'd always played pool back at home, and I was quite good at pool. Quite different, though. We have the yellow balls and the red balls, and the pockets are tiny. And over there, I think it's the American-style stuff. It was actually really easy to play, and I'm wiping the floor with her, and she's saying, "Oh, you good." Now is the word I started to hear more than often did. When she actually said, "You want to play for money, 100 baht," and I said, "Yes, okay." I still would, and she said, "Well, I kiss you instead." I'm there wide-eyed thinking, really? I was sold on Thailand already. My friend hadn't been exaggerating. If anything, he hadn't described it accurately enough. He hadn't said how good it was. It was so good, it was better than good. It was the world, it was life, it was everything, all combined into one fantastic location. And she did. She kissed me. We had another game of pool, and we continued playing, and then I looked at my watch, and it's only an hour, and I need to go and see my friend. But I didn't want to leave her. I told her I need to go and meet my friend soon. Do you want to come with me? She said yes. Well, can you pay for the bar? Okay. And we head out together. I had a couple of beers in me at this point, and she had a couple of whiskies in her, and we go back to the hotel. At that point, it was about 30 minutes before we needed to see my friend, and she said, "You want to go to room first?" Okay. And again, my life just got better again. Things got better yet again. The situation had improved yet again. Everything was getting more real and more exciting and fantastic, and I couldn't believe it. I really, honestly, hand on heart, couldn't believe it. 30 minutes later, we're back down in the lobby. I'm all Thailanded out to the point that nothing else matters anymore, and I'm still there with her and got a huge smile on my face. She's just beautiful in every meaning of the word. My friend comes down, sees me, then he looks at me and says, "Oh, everything okay?" I said, "Yeah, been out having a great time. Just met her. We're going to go out with her." He said, "Go for it." I asked him where he wanted to go, and he said, "First, let's get something to eat." And then he wants to go to the bar he went to before, and I can take this girl with me if I want to, so we did. We went for something to eat, and the thing is, I can't remember what we had. Again, it's funny what you can remember and what you can't. I can't remember where we went to eat. I really don't remember. Food wasn't important. Sustenance wasn't important in any way, shape or form. The time and the entertainment, that was fun. That was important. And I can't remember what we ate. I can remember him taking me to the soy after the one I went to, called Soy 7, and going into a place called the Beer Garden. I can remember that as if it was yesterday, though where we went to eat completely eludes me. I'm there with my girl, and she said, "Oh, I know this place, and I have friends that come here." It wasn't about like the one I met her in, apparently. That's what my friend said he liked about it. You can kind of meet a girl who didn't work there, though she came to have drinks there. I don't really know what he meant by that, because I never went back. He's there, we're having a few drinks, chatting, and she's just next to me. She's really attentive. She's got her hand on my lap, saying, "I can't wait to go out and have a few more drinks with you." I think she was wanting to take me away from my friend. When my friend noticed the girl and she came over and sat next to him and they ordered some drinks, I just said maybe we should meet up in the morning. He said, "Yes, fair enough." So I left with her together and ended up just going back to the hotel. Best night of my life, hands down. I was a Thailand guy now, front and centre. That was what defined me. That was who I was. Thailand was who I was after that first day, and I suppose that was what would shape everything from my life forwards from there. In the morning she said she had to leave, and okay, great. I was thinking, can I get your number? I mean, I wanted to see her again. She said, "Don't worry, you can just go back to the bar and see me there," and I thought I would. I was really liking her and everything about her, and I just thought that was the chance of meeting someone like that again was impossible. That's the thing. I didn't think I could meet someone like her again. Met my friend for breakfast, had a great breakfast spread at the Ambassador. I can remember that. That was great. What do you want to do today? Well, let's just go to the bars. It was going to be a few more days like that, then we were going down to a place called Pattaya, and then after that, I was going to be going home. When you start thinking that, okay, you've just got under 2 weeks, though you've got to go home after this, that's when things start to really worry you and scare you, because you didn't want to be removed from such a fantastic place, because I was the ladies' man that had always known I was right now, because the previous day had proved it all along. He said he wanted to go in the other direction, because he'd found a little complex of bars on a street called Soy 22, when he was there last time, and he said that opens in the early evening, so it's not going to be open yet, though on the street there are other bars, and let's go and have some afternoon beers. You're looking at your watch at this time and thinking, oh, it's only 10:30 a.m. and you've got to wait a few hours before these places open. So we ended up actually going for a swim in the pool, thinking about, should we have some of the tourist attraction stuff? Should we go to the river and go on a boat? Should we go and look at the Grand Palace? The thing that I can remember, when I looked at my friend and said, should we go to the Grand Palace? He burst out laughing as if to say, pull yourself together, mate, don't be ridiculous. Why would you go and look at the damn Grand Palace when the bars are here? Well, what about the temples? And he's laughing again, and I'm laughing with him. I'm just trying to pull his leg. Why would you go and look at such nonsense stuff when you've got the bars? So we just waited for those places to open and headed up there, and he pointed out Soy Cowboy, which was just across the road, and said, we have to go and check that place out. I said, yeah, let's go at some point. And that's what we were going to do. We made it to Soy 22. That little complex he mentioned was closed, but the ones opposite the side of the road and a few bars there, though it wasn't much action in the afternoon, so we found ourselves going for something to eat. Anyway, fast forward a number of hours and we made it to that bar complex. He meets a girl very quickly that he likes and I'm on my own. I go into another bar and all of a sudden I'm in deep conversation, basic fun conversation, just the same as it was the previous day with that girl who I was always thinking in the back of my mind that I wanted to go and see again, though I'd forgotten about her now because I'd met this other girl who was just the same as her, if anything, more beautiful. 20-something years old. Can't remember exactly how old she was. I still remember this meeting exactly like the one before, like it was yesterday. Here I am, the real ladies' man yet again, the guy I'd always been. It was just a wonderful experience of exhilaration and excitement and everything I'd always wanted. I'm finding I'm playing pool with her, and it was just like, hang on, I'm forgotten about the girl from yesterday. When I woke up in the morning, I thought would be the girl I'd go back and see time and time again. But now, who cares? We've got her instead. Have a great time with that. This was, 3 more days until we left for Pattaya. 3 more days exactly like that, which were just the best days of my life. Every day when I'm waking up in the morning, I'm thinking I'm going to go back to see the same girl again because it's great. But I don't go back to see her again because I meet someone else who is equally as great. And you just understand that you've just got the pick of all these beautiful girls who are interested in you. And I believed who are really interested in you because I thought that was the case. I'd always believed, and I think this was an error that many guys tend to make, I'd always believed that when you met a girl like that, they wanted, first and foremost, to be removed from the bar scene. I thought that was their dream, to meet someone who would take them out of the bar scene and they would give themselves to the guy in the truest sense of the word, just give themselves. Not in a disrespectful way or anything towards like that, just that's what I thought, and that's what attracted me to it. I didn't know what the connotations were that came with the scams and the manipulation and anything. I didn't realise that was a thing. I just thought it was people from different worlds, the better world and the worst world would never do anything negative to the better world. That's just how I thought it was. I mean, that's a very crude example of what I'm trying to say, but a very basic thing, that's generally what I believed. Pattaya was another complete wake-up call as to what was available in the world, because if you think about it, Bangkok and how great that was, Pattaya was just like the best bits of Bangkok, amplified but cheaper. That's honestly how I found it. I just want to go and talk about my first night in Pattaya. I could go on about that for ages because it was wonderful, though let's just say we were on Soi 6, a wonderful street. We'd made it to Soi Cowboy the night before actually, and that was great. And Soi 6 it was just like heaven. It was like heaven on earth. We actually had a meal at the little English-style pub not too far from the top of Soi 6 first, and we head out from that place, and it's just girls everywhere. Although it was such a fantastic place, it didn't feel as good as the more intimate-style bars. Although we had a fantastic time in a number of the bars there, I never really found myself attracted to girls that worked on Soi 6 or Soi Cowboy. In fact, Nana Plaza too, as I would found out later, that weren't necessarily the same as going into a bar that girls just worked in who weren't, in bikinis and everything like that. It was different, I think, though still great. Don't get me wrong, still great. But my friend actually met a girl there and we left Soi 6, headed up to Soi Bukaw. To me, that was more like it. Another great experience that I still remember like it was yesterday. This went on for the rest of the holiday, and then I'm having to leave. Having to leave, that was awful. That was a difficult time, because my friend is still staying on, already decided he was going to live there. Like I said, he'd made his money, good for him. But I'm getting taken away from Thailand and I'm going back home, and all of a sudden it's like you've woken up from a dream and you're in a nightmare. That's what it felt like. It was like all of a sudden you've woken up from living the best dream ever, a dream that your imagination, while you're dreaming, wouldn't take you as far as if it would otherwise have done, because you didn't know it was possible. Then you're now living in this nightmare situation. Before long, I'm starting to rationalise the fact that I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm 50-odd years old and I don't want to live at all like this. This is not who I'm meant to be. I can be the real me in Thailand. I can live like I want to live in Thailand. I can do the things I want to do there. At home, I can't do anything. I never even considered that I was close to retirement at all. If I thought about what I had and what I could put together, I'm coming to an amount in my mind, and this was 14 years or something like that ago, maybe 2012 we're talking about, 2011, 2013 maybe. That's the thing. I can remember the instances of meeting girls and things like that, though which year it was exactly, who knows. I could work it out and find out, but I don't really want to. Can't be bothered. I'm just working out in my mind what can I do to go to Thailand. This was probably just before the working online remote phase that kicked in maybe 5 or 6 years after this, and picked up considerably after COVID. This was before people did that en masse. I knew I couldn't teach because I'd heard that was a possibility, but I couldn't do it. Could I do anything? Could I work? What could I do? I don't know. What do I even mean? I'm looking around my house and I'm looking outside. I've got my car, that's worth however much it was. I've got my collectibles, I had a few coin collections and stamps. Not worth a lot of money, though a couple of £1,000s. I'm thinking, well, I can only get together at most £20,000. Then it was like a eureka moment. I can remember just feeling so depressed and so upset about my lot in life. This was after I'd been back home from work on a Monday evening, realising that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday followed before having to repeat the whole process time and time again indefinitely, week after week, month after month, year after year for eternity. I just remember slouching back into my couch, feeling awful, beer in hand about to drown out my sorrows, and I saw the ceiling of my house and something twigged. I've got my house. I've got my house. It was a small back-to-back terraced house, though I had it. I didn't have a mortgage on it. It was worth at the time about £75,000. If I add that together with my other money, and wing it a bit, I could get 100,000. That was at the time, 5 million baht, and all of a sudden I thought, that's my answer. That's the solution to the problem I'm facing. That's me getting to where I need to be. I quickly understood, though, 5 million baht, if I lived like I did on holiday, is not going to last very long, and I knew I couldn't do that. But I did think to myself I could have a good 3 months of really living it up and really having a great time, and then I could settle into something and try to come up with a solution as to how to remain there. I didn't have a pension or anything. I mean, I had a very small pension that I'd been paid into that I was going to get, though it wasn't going to give me a fortune. It would have been maybe about £500 a month. Maybe, so, not great, but something. But that was still years away. I was thinking, could I last until I get the pension, then the government pension in the future? And that's even further away. But I couldn't think about it. So I wrote that off and thought 3 months of living it up, having the best time ever, then you've got probably 3 years to really find something to do, really work something out, and really set yourself up. I even said to myself, if the worst comes to the worst and I have to go home, so what? At least I've tried. I would never have been able to live with myself if I hadn't tried. What I would say to people who are in a position where they can think, should I try or should I not try? Trying can destroy you, though trying can also make you. At the time, the thought of not trying was worse than anything else. If I didn't try, I wouldn't have been able to live with myself. That's why, after I'd only been back for probably 3 weeks at the most, I called my friend who was living the good life and was telling him about his latest conquest and rubbing it in, so to speak, and I just thought and told him, I'm going to be retiring too. I'm selling everything, and I'm moving there, giving myself 3 months to have the time of my life, be the guy I'd always wanted to be, and then I'm going to find something to do. He didn't try to warn me or anything because he knew Thailand more, though he didn't really know Thailand as much as most people did, because that was only his second time there, and he'd already decided he was retiring, though he had enough money to do that, so he could make the mistakes that I couldn't make. He could afford to, I couldn't. I think that was the thing. And he really wasn't Thailand worldly like he thought he was either. He'd just been there one time before and thought he knew everything. And he just said, though, that's amazing, go for it. You're not going to regret it. It's the best decision ever. He was supporting my idea to move to Thailand, though he was still in the honeymoon phase of it for himself. And I think it was his reassurance also that allowed me to take on board that this was the best idea. This was the most important thing for me to do, and if I didn't do it, I would regret it for the rest of my life. Before long, the house is on the market, and it hadn't yet sunk in, I don't think, what I was doing, and the gravity of it, and how serious this was, because I was just excited. I wasn't feeling too bad about work, and before long you get an offer on the house, and that's another step closer, and then a few weeks go by and you've signed the contract, and more weeks are going by and you've got a completion date, and then you think, well, I need to get rid of the car. So you do that, and you get rid of the collections and the collectibles and empty everything you've got, and you're a week away from the completion on the house, and all you've got left is a mattress and a small bag, a couple of pairs of jeans, a couple of t-shirts, a jumper, a coat, and 2 pairs of shoes, and that's it. That's all you've got to your name. And I go into work, and you've already put in notice. Quickly days are coming down, another day, and then bang, the house is completed, the money lands in your account, and you throw the mattress in the bin. I was struggling to do that, given it was heavy. Anyway, that was just something I can still remember. I can remember, and this is quite funny, and I want to say it even though it's not relevant to the story. I can remember cutting the mattress into a number of pieces and somehow carrying it to the skip that was close to where my friend lived, another friend this is, saying, can I throw it in here? And he said, yeah, go for it. And it was just fun, just really hacking the mattress up, as if it was to say, hacking up my old life. As if I was hacking up this mattress up because it hadn't had anything happen on it like it should have had. I was saying goodbye to my old life in style, and I was taking anger out on that life that I'd lived up until then, just on the mattress. It was funny, I suppose, looking back, even though things went bad for me after that, but I did it. That was anyway, that was it. Now I've got this small bag, nothing else, no electronics, no anything, apart from this old telephone I had. Wasn't interested in this new kind of stuff that was coming up at the time, no way, shape or form in electronics and fancy phones. But there I was, basic telephone, small bag, nothing else to my name, and I felt this kind of liberation in a way, as if to say, stuff doesn't make you, freedom makes you. I believed I was free, and I believed I was going to build a fantastic life. I'd already booked a ticket again down from London, again on Eva Air, as if to relive what had happened before. Again the same night in the same hotel before in London, 24 hours later and I'm in Bangkok. I'm there on a retirement visa which I'd managed to get a few days beforehand, probably over a week actually. That was going to be something I could extend, had things to sort out and things to do, though I had my 3 months. I wanted to cram in a lot, I wanted to enjoy it, and after that take things from there. That's exactly what I did, and in the most part, life was fantastic, life was great, and life was everything I'd always wanted and thought life would be. I found myself going to and from Bangkok and Pattaya over those 3 months. By this point, I'd got the retirement extension, that was great, and that gave me more sense of comfort that I was actually living there. I had multiple fantastic experiences throughout the course of those 3 months in Bangkok and Pattaya, and I don't know what it was. As much as I loved Pattaya and the nightlife and everything there, and Bangkok for that too, I decided I was going to live in Bangkok because I believed that being the capital city, there might be more opportunities there, more things to do, and also I can find myself not going as crazy in Bangkok as I did in Pattaya. That's the truth of it. When the first 3 months came to an end, although I didn't feel like I got it out of my system, I definitely wasn't one of those guys who was going to continue to go crazy and let his money go away. I didn't want that to happen. I wasn't about to do that. I spent in those 3 months probably about 10 grand, so I had 90 grand left. And 90 grand was what I had left to get myself into a position where I was able to live in Thailand for the rest of my life. I didn't need a lot of money. And because I didn't need a lot of money, just a simple life, that's what I thought was going to happen. That's what my other life began. I'm starting to look at job postings and quickly realising again, why didn't I do this research beforehand? But quickly realising that getting a job as a foreigner in Thailand is something that's extremely difficult. It's not going to be easy for me to do that, and the only options that keep coming up are very specific jobs in very specific industries that I wasn't in or teaching. Then I'm thinking, what about a business? I don't know why I thought business, because I'd never done business in my life before. I'd never been a businessman, I'd never been an entrepreneur. But I get it though, why so many guys actually consider doing businesses when they've never done them in their lives before, because there aren't any other options. In Thailand, there aren't any other things you can do. For me though, thinking about business, and because this was in my mind, I allowed myself to think about that, and going to the bars occasionally, this time not as often as before, and not going as wild as before. I probably was more inclined to become more serious with a girl that I liked because of the fact that I reasoned with myself, as I suppose guys do in situations like this, is if you've got a girl and she's with me, then I don't have to go out all the time. Then it's going to be cheaper, because she's not going to want anything, because she's not working in the bar. And well, I did meet a girl. I met her in that little bar complex on Sukhumvit Soi 22, the one that we went to on the second night, my second night in Thailand. By this point, my friend was living in Phuket. I went to visit one time, and I should say, though he was just living there, great time, enough money to do that. Bought himself a condo, a great girlfriend, and another girlfriend, and enough money, great and good for him. We met up a few more times over the course of the next however long. I'm finding that this girl that I'm with, that I met, and becoming very serious with her very quickly. She was the first girl that I met in a bar, and went back to the following day to see her. Well, I'd never done that before, because I didn't need to. Now I felt like I needed to. I needed to have that connection to one person as opposed to many, just to be able to save money and to be able to find someone who I can, live that life with and become more loving and more caring and more of a relationship sort of thing, as opposed to being a fun sort of thing. I'd been the ladies' man I'd always wanted to be and always knew I was. I had lived that life for 3 months, and I'd had the time of my life, and everything was great. When I met her, it was different. I was probably 52 at this point, maybe 53 when I met her, and she was probably the oldest girl I'd ever spent time with in Thailand. She was 34. Again, I believe I was more interested in her for long term because of the fact that she was older. I believe that meeting someone who was older was a better idea for long-termness, because of course the older a girl gets, the less her beauty is, and her beauty fades, and she's not going to be as belligerent or as inclined to cheat on me or anything like that. That's what I'm thinking, because of course, though I'm liking her and I'm falling in love with her, and I believe her with me. I'd gone back to the bar probably for 2 weeks in a row, going to see her every night, and I had fallen in love with her at this time, and she with me, and I really did believe that. It was then, how can we take this to the next level? I asked her to move in with me, and she said yes, and now I've got a living girlfriend, and it's great, because she's just like she was when I met her, and we're having a great time, and we're going out to eat at these little Thai-style places quite next to the condo I rented in Jon Nut. And going back to what I talked about with the bathtub and the oven and all this kind of thing, yes, nothing like that at all in the place I rented. But I reasoned with myself that it didn't matter. I didn't need that. Although I missed it, and I would have preferred to have had that stuff, the places I looked at that had them were considerably more expensive and way out of budget. But because of this, we're not spending a lot of money. We'd go for a few drinks together in the evening, and in the daytime I'm just racking my brains thinking about what to do. She'd go and see her friends, she'd go to the hair salon and make herself look beautiful and chat to friends and come back, and I was just getting into lots of ideas, though nothing ever became serious, or nothing ever became, well, this is a good idea, or that's a good idea, because I suppose I was just thinking about things, though I was living in a fantasy world, believing in all kinds of grandiose ideas that I thought I could do, such as I could start a business and have a big office and drive around in a nice car, though where am I going to get the money from to do that? When I started talking to her about businesses and wanting to do things, I made the fatal error of believing that the ideas that she had were better than my ideas and more inclined to work than my ideas, because she lived in Thailand and she knew the country and was from there, and she knew that, therefore she'd already been doing a business. I mean, that's what she said. She said she'd already be doing a business if she had the money to do it herself. The fact that she didn't have the money to do it herself, that was why she wasn't doing it. If she did, she would have done it. It wasn't anything to do with a lack of ability. That's what I was thinking. She starts talking about she's always wanted to do this. Again, like I said, though she didn't have the money to do it, but she's always wanted to do it, a business where she came from. Here we go again, I suppose, you're thinking. I didn't know here we go again at the time, because I'd never left that part of Thailand before. I mean, I'd never gone up north further than Bangkok, and she's starting to talk about where she came from, which was a village in Korat. Apparently there, things were cheaper, business was easier, opportunities were huge. She kept coming back to how that was always her dream, to go up there and do a business, and I'm really excited about this prospect. I'm thinking it's fantastic. The way she says we can live there for 30,000 a month, and we could do a business, and if we make 30,000 a month, we're having the best life in the world. I'm really appealing to this idea, though not knowing anything about the village or anything whatsoever. After a couple of weeks of talking, and at this point I'd already decided that she was my forever girl and she was the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, and we got engaged to get married. That was to go up to do the village, and we were going to go up to the village as well because of that. I suppose that's why I wanted to get engaged, because I wanted to arrive in style. I wanted to arrive and place my claim on her as being the girl that I was always going to, build this huge business with. I was shocked, though, when I got there, because how I'd pictured it and how it was were two completely different things. It was a lot more, and I don't know the right word to use to describe it, more laid back, though not laid back as in the same kind of Bangkok, just laid back. It was like a different world, I think is the best way to put it. It was like what Bangkok must have been like a long time ago. You don't have such disparity in what places are like where I come from. The buildings are quite similar, but it's like you can have a village location and a city location where I come from, and the quality of the things is the same. But in Thailand, it's not like that. It's like the quality in Bangkok is one sort of quality, and the quality in the village is orders of magnitudes less. I think that's how you could put it. How I saw it, I looked at it as being an opportunity. I looked at it as eventually things are going to narrow the gap between her hometown and Bangkok. That's going to narrow, and modernization is going to come, and people who are going to get in now are going to benefit. I suppose that's what I thought was going to happen. Perhaps I'm a generation away from something like that happening, or the next generation even, whatever. We meet the family, we talk about getting married, and this was the first time I heard about Sinsod, and it was only spoken about because they said there was something they didn't want. She was already 34, she already had 3 kids, they were living there with the family, so it wasn't a thing. I only wanted to mention that because I believe lots of guys get tripped up for that. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm anyone to talk with about that, though I did fall for that, because I didn't, and I wasn't expected. I had to pay for the ceremony, but that was only 100,000 baht, and that was arranged for a few weeks' time. We started looking around the area. What can we do? I know you've got the cliche things that guys did, the shop, the restaurant. What else can you do? I really came to be interested in the idea that she had, which apparently we could lend money to people and be a money lender, and I had no idea what this was illegal, and I had no idea that it was, based on the interest rate she was saying was possible. She said some people get 20% a month, and you can do this and that, and I don't know, I didn't know anything about it. She kept saying this was something we could do. Apparently her aunt did it, and can we go and speak to your aunt? And yes, we can. And I should have known, go, and when you arrive at the aunt's house and it was this shack with a tin roof, an outside toilet thing, that perhaps it wasn't the best idea, because if it was, why is she living like this? I always reasoned that this is why they like. That, yeah, that's the thing. I thought they just liked houses like this and basic things, because that's where they're from and that's what they're used to. But we put that idea to one side for the time being and went back to Bangkok. I bought a small car because it was something we would need. We'd already decided that we're going to go and live up there and do something there. But what business we would do yet wasn't actually 100% decided. We got the car, we got married, a proper marriage certificate, and that felt like I'd won in life. I'd probably met and spent time with 100 of the most beautiful girls in the world, and now I'd settled down with one who was going to be mine forever. It was what life was meant to be like, and life had come together so well, and I just thought things were going to get better from there. I looked at my life and the situation at the time, and the only way I could see things going was up. I couldn't see anything going bad from there, and I suppose that's why it is as sad as it is. We went up, got married in the village in style, which was fun, a typical Thai thing. Then we need to find somewhere to live. We rented somewhere that was close by, and then we started looking into this money lending business. And that was when I found out that perhaps it wasn't a good idea, because I did contact a lawyer. I'm not just going to do things blindly. And I said, this is what my wife wants to do, is it okay? And he said, well, no. The maximum interest rate you're allowed to charge is 15% a year. You're not registered, you're a foreigner, don't do it. When I spoke to my wife, she didn't say, no, we can do it. She said, okay, perhaps it's better if we don't do it. And we went to make sure that, everything is doing properly. We didn't want to do anything wrong. And we were living in this small rented place at this time, and probably 6 whole months, coming up with different ideas. I wasn't drawn to a restaurant, even though the funny thing is, and this is really funny, when I'd moved up there was a guy literally in the same village building a restaurant as we were moving in. And I suppose that's why I wasn't attracted to it, because there was another foreigner already doing it. If it probably wasn't like that, we might have done it. Maybe because he was doing it, that's why we didn't. But this guy is building a house as well, and I hadn't even thought about building a house. I thought if this is a restaurant coming up, and there's another foreigner over there, he's just bought a load of farm machinery. There were 3 foreigners already in the village, and they were all developing the place. I thought this is on the up and up. Perhaps if we invest in a small little, not hotel, that's the wrong word, not a guest house either, but you see them on pieces of land like individual buildings, and you rent them for 500 baht a night each. There was one of these places 2 villages away from where we were, and I thought, what about this? We can have a small house at the foot of the land. We can have 6 of these little huts. Not huts. There's air conditioning inside. They're comfortable with a nice shower and everything like that. And yeah, 500 baht a night each. 3,000 baht a day. 90,000 a month. If we're only 30% of the time full, That's 30,000 a month minus a bit of electric. So maybe over 30% full, just over. After electric, we could get 30,000 a month. It should really be doable. This is the idea that we kept coming back to. Of course, we would need to invest money, and based on everything and the situation and, the village and where we were at the time, the cost of things at the time, I probably had £80,000 at this point after everything, including the car and the wedding and everything. If we invested about 3.5 million, I'd switch over to a marriage visa because I wouldn't have 800,000 in the bank left. But 3.5 million, small little house, 6 of these things, and we're good to go. We pulled the trigger. We really did. We went for it, and it was so exciting, and it was amazing to think that we'd actually were doing this, and I couldn't think of anything going wrong. Of course, everything had to go in my wife's name, but I was prepared for that, and I was happy for that. It was fine. It took not long at all for these things to be built. We did 6 rooms first, so I thought we could live in one while our house was being built, and they were up in 2.5 months. Up, all furnished, great, ready to rent. We moved into one of them, got about £1 million baht, just over £1.5 million actually for the house. So these places had cost us 2 million for these 6 things, which didn't seem too bad, and that included the land as well, which again didn't seem too bad. And we opened up, and all of a sudden, we're business owners, and it's really exciting, and we get people coming in every now and then, although not even 30% occupancy. This was the thing that hit first away. We were probably closer to 3% occupancy. We're not really concerned to start with, though, and it should have been a concern. It should have been a huge worry. He should have said to me, don't build a house, don't build a house, do not build a house, you idiot. This is not going according to plan. It was going according to plan in my mind, though, because we were getting people in, and I just thought it was one of those, it takes time. It takes time for things to go right. It takes time for things to get better. It takes time for things to build, and word of mouth spreads. And well, yeah, we go on site and advertise it, and yeah, it's only a matter of time. That's what I was thinking. What I should have been thinking is, don't build a house, you idiot. You've already risked all this, and it's not working. But that was working, though. It's just crazy how the mind works. It was crazy that my mind was convincing myself to build a house, and then we built it. After that was built and ready, and I had about £500,000 baht left, which didn't concern me at the time, because we had this business, and we are getting people into it, and into these places. Again, as much as we're getting people in, it's not enough. I'm always telling myself, though, even through the whole construction of the house, for some reason I'd convinced myself that when the house was ready, that's when it would work properly. Why it would work, I don't know. It was like it had to work, and even though we're not getting people in, I'm still spending on the house thinking that, okay, when the house is ready, then it's going to work. How I convinced myself of that, as I said, I still don't know, and I'm scratching my head as I'm thinking about it. I have no idea. That's what it was. It was like that, and it's ridiculous, and I really hate myself for that. There I was with £500,000 baht, marriage extension now because I didn't have the money for the retirement extension, and well, 3 months later I only have 400,000 baht left, and we are getting people in. I think, though, that was when it hit me that, okay, the house is ready, why aren't people moving into these places, like regularly? Why aren't we getting people coming all the time? We are getting people in, though maybe on one day we have 1 person, and then next day we have 2, and then next day we don't have any. Not in for a few days, 3-4 days, there aren't any people in any of them. It was like people would say for 1 day, and occasionally you'd find out that the people staying there were perhaps local people who wanted to spend time with a girlfriend who they weren't meant to have, and that was one of the things. There's no long-term stay people there, there's no anything, and I think quickly, well, what can we do? Maybe advertising it to foreigners who want to live there. Well, how do I do that? Put an advert on this website that many people use, that foreigners used, but nobody came. And it was just a very, very quick, and although we're not spending a lot of money, although we're happy together and everything is good together, I believe anyway, when I dipped under my marriage extension money, okay, we've got a year for this to work, but then when it comes to time for me to renew the visa, I've only got 100,000 baht left, and I'm panicking for the whole year, so I'm just kind of delaying the inevitable. Then I had to pay 20,000 baht for a dodgy retirement extension, and it's like just delaying the inevitable, praying for the best, though the best never came. What do you do, though, when your money's running out? What can you do? I had no money left. I had nothing. I had a couple of £1,000 and that was it. My wife was just oblivious to my struggles and my pain and my not understanding what's going on and my difficulties and everything. It was such a difficult time, and I didn't feel like we drifted apart. I feel like it was a sudden implosion of all this excitement that I'd had ever since I'd moved to Thailand just implode around me when I realised that I didn't have enough money to even stay for 3 more months. When I told my wife about that, can we mortgage something or sell something and do something? And no, we can't, she said. Is there anything you can do? Can you get a job? No, she said. Well, I need to go back to England. Okay, go back to the bar then, she said. That was the worst thing when she said that. Okay, I go back work bar. I need money too. I said I don't have money and I can't give it to you and you can't do that. We need to work something out. And then it's when I suppose I found out that I didn't have money to give her. All of a sudden she doesn't want to be my wife anymore. Okay, I go back work bar. I need money. I need to spend money in my family. Because I'd been helping her family. I'd been supporting her kids. I'd been supporting all of them. But it was like everything's fine until there's no money. Then when there's no money, okay, I go back work bar. And I'm trying to tell her, no, please don't do that. You're my wife. I love you. You can't do that. But I need money, she said. I don't care. I need money. And that was just a nightmare situation. I remember calling up my friend asking for a loan and can I borrow some money, mate? He had a lot and he said, well, come down and speak to me. So I flew down to Phuket and told him what had happened. And he just said to me, if I give you some money, it'll go and then he'll be in a bad position again. I'm happy to help, he said, but what's your plan? I said, I don't know. I need money so that my wife will stay with me. And then he said, well, by this point he had a wife and he had kind of thought, well, I've got enough money. I'm never going to have this problem. But what would happen if I ran out of money kind of thing? He was starting to think that based on what I was saying. But it was not going to happen for him, so I don't know. But he said, I can give you some money if you want to go back home and I can help you get set back up at home and pay me back later kind of thing. Though it's not a good idea to stay in Thailand, he even said that. But I begged him, I really did. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm happy to lend you 10 grand. I'll give you 5 now, and if you can make it work, great. Otherwise, I'll give you 5 grand for you to go back home. And I had to thank him for that. I said, okay, and I called my wife and said, I'm okay for the time being. We really need to try and do some stuff. We can maybe try and start something else. And I'm speaking to the guy in the village with the restaurant, and he's scratching his head. Why is nobody coming into the restaurant? Well, fools, all of us, I suppose. Anyway, we make it back up to the village and put a plan in place. Okay, what we need to do, we need to try and rent 3 of these places out cheaply for 3,000 baht a month each to people who want to rent them long term. Live there long term, and that will give us a bit of buffer. That will cover your family. That will cover that side of things. After that, we need to try and do what we can to get the other people in. Well, I should have known. My wife's happy again. Okay, this is great. And she's just like the same person again. The person who said she was going back to the bar was so different, and it's night and day different, and you can't believe how people can be 2 versions of themselves. I can't believe it. But anyway, that was like it was. And what we can do, though, is work and everything, and 5 grand we had to make it work. But 6 months later, it's gone. Okay, I'm going to go back to work in the bar, she said again, you bad man, and why you do this to me kind of thing. That's what she was saying, why you do this to me. And I'm saying, well, I'm not doing anything, I'm trying my best. And that was what it was. She ended up with the house, ended up with those things, ended up with the car. I ended up with borrowing another 5 grand from my friend so I could go back home and got back to work. And well, the first day back at work was the worst day of my life, because there I am with nothing now, thinking to myself, why did I even try? I convinced myself that trying was the best thing to do when I tried, though now I'm thinking if I hadn't tried, I'd have a house, I'd have more, though I wouldn't have tried, and it would have always been in the back of my mind. I eventually paid my friend back, eventually just continued my life and got that pension I was due a little bit more because I'd paid a bit more in, and I retired for a second time a year ago now. I had to be in Thailand though, didn't I? And I am in Thailand now. I am back in Thailand, although I'm living a very meagre Thailand existence, given that Thailand has got much more expensive than it used to be. It's not like it was, but I still have an okay time, though they are few and far between the great times I have. I made it to where I want to be again. Eventually, we got divorced from my wife. Eventually, that happened a long time ago and she met another guy. Who knows what happened there? I'm not in a relationship at the moment because I can't afford it. I mean, I could though again, but I'd rather be casual. A couple of times a month, that's enough for me. I have girlfriends, but not serious, and that's the way it will have to be. That's my Thailand story. I'm a Thailand guy through and through. Thailand is my life. Thailand is everything to me. The bars are everything to me. Thai girls are everything to me. And I tried to make it work in the best way that I thought I could, but it didn't work, and it destroyed me, and it took me years and years and years to get back here, though I am here, and I suppose that's the main thing. Where I got it wrong was believing that it would be cheaper to be in a relationship. It would be cheaper to be single and sensible, though I couldn't believe that, and I couldn't do that. I thought being in a relationship was cheaper, and it was to start with, but it was when we started investing in things and doing things and hoping that things was going to work to give us enough money to live, and it didn't give us enough money to live, and there's no backup, there's no anything that can be put in place. There's no security net like there is at home, there's nothing. If it goes wrong, that's it, and it went wrong, and I lost it all, and I missed the fact that I had this wife that I loved, and it took me years to get over that. I don't know, I'm still the guy I'd always thought I was, I'm still the ladies' man I thought I was. I suppose I'm not really though, am I? Because if I was, I would have been at home, but I never was. Was I just deluded? I think that's the best way you can put it. I will leave you now and just say Thailand is who I am. Thailand defines me, and I wish it didn't, because if it didn't, I'd probably have a lot more money than I actually do.